We're back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Our guests with us this morning from Open Table, Nashville, Paula Foster and India Pungarcher. And we're taking your phone calls, comments about the issue of homelessness. What's happening? New legislation is going to further limit where homeless can be one way or the other. Does it lead to arrests and the like? What's happening in this marketplace with the costs going through the roof, where no one can really afford to live here right now unless you're a millionaire, and it just makes things worse. We have James who waited through the break. Let's take his phone call. James, good morning. Hi, James.
Hello.
What's on your mind?
How are you?
Good.
What I was calling you about was a few years ago, 10 or 12 years ago, I used to go by that big state prison out there off Centennial Boulevard.
Yeah.
And I know this may sound bad, but I thought it was good. Why couldn't they take all their buildings and all that land and turn that into a homeless place? It looked to me like there's a whole lot of waste. It was just sitting there doing nothing.
Listen, and I don't know about that specific property, James, but you're not far off. We were talking about this kind of very thing during the commercial break, about what type of properties. That's one of them, James, and that's a good example. There are some vacant schools that have not been used, other properties. Again, it's all very valuable, land. But what about the idea of, the mayor can say, and we were talking about Reverend Fuzz suggesting a couple of schools that could be renovated, maybe, I don't know if it would be suited for some type of longer-term homeless shelter. Your thoughts about the properties that are out there that are vacant in the city?
Well, I think all properties should be on the table. But the problem is what you just said. They're very valuable properties.
Yeah.
And so
is
the city going to take it and make it available for housing for people who are experiencing homelessness? Or are they going to sell it to the highest bidder because it brings in so much revenue that they can do whatever it is they do with it? I'm not sure sometimes. So that's not necessarily a solution, but it could be part of the problem. There's so many different things that we could do if we would just do it. The mayor throwing money at homelessness in his budget is great. We'll take it. But the issue is he's got really no plan for what to do with that money. He's reacting. He's being very reactive to people who've been very loud in their displeasure about people sleeping in parks. And that's great. We'll take the money. But the question is, who's going to decide what to do with that money? And how are we going to make sure that that money actually builds more housing units? Because if we don't build more housing units, we're never going to solve this issue.
Yeah, and so what the mayor's experienced with people angry about sleeping in parks is the same thing that's led to this legislation to pass at the state level, and what the governor will likely sign. We'll see how that plays out. So again, that's the general populace, and I thought it was reflected in some of the attitudes after the verdict in that trial last week, is going to say, good, I'm tired of that, that's an eyesore, these people need to be someplace else, which again, I wish there was some place for them to go, but you're both saying that this type of reaction, which maybe just pacifies an angry constituency short term, is just going to make things worse.
Yes, because the thing is, if you start arresting everyone who's experiencing homelessness because they have no place to go, we don't have enough jail beds for them. So we don't have enough shelter beds, we don't have enough jail beds.
And they're going to get out again, and where are they going to go? They're just going to be revolving because there's nothing.
And then it makes it worse.
And they're never going to get into housing.
They're never going to get into housing because then they can't get a job because they have a criminal record. They can't get into housing because they have a criminal record. What does this really do?
Is the thinking, not that this would just pass it on, is the thinking then that if you do that enough, they'll just say, throw up their arms and leave the area? Which doesn't solve the problem. It becomes someone else's problem, but will they leave?
How?
Is that?
How? How are they going to leave?
Yeah.
If they don't have a car to be able to go to work, how are they going to have a car or a vehicle or transportation to get out of Nashville? And then are we okay sending everyone who is experiencing homelessness out of Nashville into someone else's community to be homeless there? It makes absolutely no sense.
Let's go to Fran. Fran, good morning. Hi, Fran.
Yes. I just don't understand how they want to arrest people because they don't have anything. And then, two, I don't understand why they want to build another big stadium when they got people living in the streets, under bridges, in the woods. Why don't they take that money and build affordable housing for these people? It doesn't make sense. The only thing I can realize is getting all this money, and they fat in their pockets, and they don't care about the other people. They don't care, because if they did, they would try to help them. And another thing I don't understand, I believe in helping people. I don't have a whole lot, but I do believe in sharing with what I have. But I don't understand how they can, like I said, I believe in helping people. But how can they bring the people from Ukraine over here and put them in housing, and then they got people, charity begins at home. And how can they bring those people here and put them in homes, and they got people living in the streets here that belongs here?
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't know. Refugees come into this country, and there's a separate reason on that. We can talk about that. Are a bunch of Ukrainian refugees taking homeless spaces?
No.
No, okay. Well, we can hit that. But
and I think it's a good point, you know,
Yeah.
and what I think her point is that, you know, charity begins at home, or taking care of people begins with taking care of the people who are around you right here. I am very happy that we've been able to help the people of Ukraine, and I don't think that we should stop that. That's wonderful. But that doesn't mean we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. We can help the refugees who are coming in, but we can also help the people who are living here who are experiencing homelessness at the same time.
Yeah. She talked about, you know, as you mentioned, the idea of we can build a new stadium, but we're not addressing this. It's crazy because I drive in every morning, sometimes early, to do, you know, the morning news, and yeah, I see under the overpass, especially in the winter, as I drive in, because I get off the interstate, and there's these people, you know, just huddled, sleeping under there, and I'm thinking, wait a second, and it's not just obviously a Nashville problem. I was in New Orleans a few weeks back, maybe worse there, and I just remember the crowds of people around Bourbon Street, and there would be homeless people literally sleeping right on the sidewalks, and these people who are there reveling and spending good money, stepping over these bodies. And I looked at that, and I see this coming in myself in the mornings. I'm just like, wait a second, I live in America. These are people like you. If I saw you or you, someone, maybe it's because you don't know them and it's easy enough for you to slough it off. But I just can't come to terms, like, I'm living in this country and I'm seeing people just step over someone who's asleep on the street there, and they're ignoring it like it's nothing else, like it's a potted plant. Yeah. That's a human being sleeping or unconscious on the sidewalk, and literally stepping over.
Yep. I think we've become so numb to folks, and we've been so concerned with only taking care of ourselves. And, you know, we've had, I think it was 4 friends, you know, either last year or early this year already, they died of hypothermia. And these weren't folks that were, you know, in the woods where no one, you know, was around them or saw them. These were 4 folks who died literally like in our downtown corridor, froze to death of hypothermia. One person in a porta potty because that's where they were trying to stay warm, and they'd sleep during the night.
It's just stunning. It's surreal sometimes. You stop and just think about it, and you know, you can help an individual at that one point. You can give a few dollars. You can buy a contributor, but it's, I mean, come on. I've been talking about this since I've lived in Nashville. It's gotten worse, but I mean, decades. Let's go to Wilma. Wilma, good morning. Hi, Wilma.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to make a comment as to what was said, that somebody was wondering the reason that this law was passed. Was it passed thinking that people will just leave? Well, I beg this question. How did the death penalty and executing people work out for us? Has that deterred murders and violent crimes? It hasn't. When you have no place to go, you stay where you are. And if you have no means and no energy to move more than a few blocks, you stay where you are. I have had stories told to me over the past 50 years of people telling me about their family members who were literally scraped off the streets from downtown Nashville after they froze to death, laying right out the sidewalk and dying. I really want to know, by the Christian-claiming legislature, what's the secret? I mean, what is the secret that this new law is going to reveal for us? Because God must be talking to them, and not to us, but God must only be talking to them. So that's all I'm going to say before I start cussing. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, Wilma. I appreciate your call.
I like Wilma. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, because those are the exact same questions that we've been asking as well. And she's right. I have no words. It is ridiculous, again, to think that this law is going to help solve homelessness. What is going to solve homelessness is more housing. Housing, 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 housing. If we have units of housing to put people into, to help them get into, to help them stabilize themselves, we can wrap services around them to help them stay there. But we can't do that if we don't have the actual units of housing to put them into.
Right. It's that simple.
housing.
Not that it's a simple thing to have happen, but that's the solution on
Right.
that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Marilyn, did you say you want to take a break? Yeah, we will take a quick break. We'll be back with more calls in our final segment with our guests right after this.